Devotees, welcome to the celebration of the appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Before we begin today's program, let us invoke auspiciousness. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Tarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today is a very auspicious day. It's a divine appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Maharaj. Let us offer our prayers to him. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidananda Namini Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayati. It means, I offer my respectful obeisances onto Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda, who is the transcendental energy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is a strict follower of the Goswamis, headed by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a prominent acharya in our succession of spiritual masters and disciples coming from Lord Krishna. He was a pioneering spiritual leader, a householder, a magistrate working in colonial India under the British rule, a prolific preacher, writer, and a poet. He wrote volumes of books reintroducing the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya at a time when those teachings had practically become lost. He composed hundreds of devotional songs glorifying Krishna to uplift the consciousness of the suffering people of this world. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered and excavated the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. Along with his devoted wife, Bhagavati Devi, he raised 10 children, including the illustrious Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who then became a great spiritual leader in his own time and the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur taught devotion to Krishna by his personal example. We owe significant debt to him for starting the course and laying the foundation for the modern day Krishna conscious movement. With that, devotees, let us pray to his lotus feet so we can progress sincerely in this path of Krishna consciousness and serve Guru, Gauranga, and Krishna. In today's celebration, first we will start with Kimberly Mataji singing Bhajans and kirtan, glorifying Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Following that, we have a very special class today by a special guest, Her Grace Dr. Nitaisevini Mataji. Mataji will be joining us from India. With that, we begin today's celebration. Hare Krishna, Kimberly Mataji. Over to you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I would have done harmonium, but my harmonium's a little bit out of order right now. Okay. So this is Gaya Gora Madhu Sware. I'm not sorry, my pronunciation is horrible. But this is a bhajan of Bhaktivinoda Thakura I really enjoy, as he has so many, but this is just one I'll do now, and then I'll do kirtan after. Gaya Gora Madhu Sware, Gaya Gora Madhu Sware, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Grehitako, vanitako, Sada Hare, Boladako, Grihitako, Vanitako, Sada Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware. Maya jale bade hoye achomiche kajalaye. Maya jale bade hoye achomiche kajalaye. Ekhone sitana peye Radha Madhav Namo Balare. Ekhona sitana peye Radha Madhav Namo Balare. Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware. Jivan hoilo se nai bajile heri kese. Jivana hoilo se nabalaje heri kese. Bhaktivinoda padese ekvanaras matore. Bhaktivinoda padese ekvanaras matore. Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware, Gai Gora Madhusware. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Kura Haribo, 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 Nitai Kura Haribo, Nitai Kura Haribo, 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 Nitai Kura Haribo, Nitai Kura Haribo, 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 Nitai Kura Haribo, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Gora Hari Jaya, Gora Hari Jaya, Gora Hari Jaya, Gora Hari, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
That was a very beautiful bhajan, Kimberly. Could you please continue the kirtan till 7:30?
No problem.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi, Paskatya Deshatanine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachanine Niyadvishesha Sunyavadi Vaskatya Nishatani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gura Haribo, Nitai Gura Haribo, Haribo, Vinod, Vinod Jaya, Vinod Jaya, Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Bhaktivinoda Jaya, Vinod, Haribo, 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 Nitaikura, Haribo, Nitaikura, Haribo, 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 Nitaikura, Haribo. Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Kimberly Mataji, for the heart-melting bhajan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Ge Gaura Madhuraswara. It was very beautiful. And thank you for the melodious kirtan. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much. With that, devotees, let's move to the next part of our program, which is a very special class today by our very special guest who's joined us all the way from India, Her Grace, Dr. Nitaisevini Mataji. Today is a very auspicious day, appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, and it's our great pleasure to have Mataji give us a special class. Nitaisevini Mataji, are you able to unmute yourself? So while Mataji is getting ready, I would like to give a brief introduction about Nitaisevini Mataji. Mataji is a disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, and she's a world-renowned spiritual teacher practicing Krishna consciousness for the last 25 years. Mataji was born in Mumbai in Gujarati business family. In 1984, her family shifted to Hyderabad, and since then, she's started attending and became closely connected to ISKCON Secunderabad. She later joined ISKCON as a full-time devotee and took initiation in 1998 in Atlanta, USA from His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. She has completed her master's in education with a PG diploma in management of voluntary organization. She completed her PhD in education from Andhra University. She is the principal of ISKCON's Divine Touch School, actively involved in collection, festival coordination, congregation preaching, college preaching, and management responsibility for ISKCON Visakhapatnam. She is multilingual and delivers discourses in English, Hindi, Telugu, Gujarati, and Bengali languages. Her discourses are a great source of inspiration for thousands of devotees all across the globe. Mataji has inspired many, many devotees to take up Krishna consciousness. Devotees are very fond of Mataji's nectarian classes and get inspired by the stories and the realization Mataji shares. With that, let us welcome Her Grace Dr. Nitaisevini Mataji by loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra one time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Nitaisevini Mataji. We are not able to hear you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, Mataji. Mataji,
Okay.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All the glories to Srila Prabhupada. On behalf of Hare Krishna Temple of Austin, we would like to warmly welcome you and thank you so much for giving us this association of you and the class. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah, you need to just put that on. Yeah, thank you. So Hare Krishna to all the devotees of Austin. Please accept my humble obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhayasya kripa sindhuvevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti Vaishnav vrinda ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Vartaman Guru vrinda ki jai. His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj ki jai. Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakura ki jai. Thank you so much for giving me this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to glorify Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur on his auspicious appearance day today. So actually, there is so much to talk on Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I've been told that I have to limit it to 1 hour. I don't know how much justice I can do, but I'll try my best. Today's class of Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been mainly taken from his own autobiography, which is called Swalikhit Jeevani. He wrote it himself for his son Lalita Prasad. It's actually in a form of a letter that he writes to his son about what all happened in his life. And also we have taken some information from Bhakti Pradeep Tirtha Maharaj's book on Thakur Bhakti Vinod, and also from Jai Sachinandan Prabhu's book on life of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, also from Rupa Vilas Prabhu's book of 7th Goswami. And also there's another interesting book by Pandit Satkari Chattopadhyay. He writes about a glimpse into life of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So we've been drawn from various sources, interesting episodes of his childhood, youth, marriage, his job as a deputy magistrate, and his books, and the whole life journey of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So it's definitely our great fortune that we have this opportunity to glorify. See, the pure devotees of the Lord are carrying the Lord in their heart. And if we get this opportunity to glorify them, hear about them, talk about them, then we also get purified. Of course, when we speak about the Lord, the devotee becomes happy. And when we speak about the devotee, the Lord becomes happy. So we're going to try and make the Lord happy today by glorifying his pure devotee, Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So, in fact, there's one letter written by Srila Prabhupada to Achyutananda Prabhu in 1971, where when Achyutananda Prabhu glorified Srila Prabhupada's Guru Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj by composing a 6-verse poem, Prabhupada was so happy. He said, if you glorify the Guru Parampara, then your life will be purified 1,000 times. So it's really an honor and privilege to do this today, to get this opportunity to glorify a devotee in the midst of all devotees. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life is more relatable to us because, see, when we hear and talk about the 6 Goswamis, it's too lofty, the whole their lifestyle, not even staying under one single tree for more than 3 days and wearing kopin and having such kind of lifestyle. We feel it's like beyond us, or even for that matter, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a sannyasi, or even for that matter, Srila Prabhupada, he took sannyas and he left his house. So, and whatever the acharyas who are there on our temple altar, whether it's Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj or Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, who lived for 140 years, and the way he had lifestyle, continuously chanting, sometimes not eating for days together. And then we have our very special Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who sometimes shuts himself inside a bathroom because he doesn't want, public toilet actually, because he doesn't want people to come and, disturb him from his bhajan, or sometimes he's sitting outside a prostitute's house because he wanted to escape Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who was asking him to give a Babaji Vesha. So they are all like, too far for us somewhere. But when we hear, talk and read about Bhakti Vinod Thakur, at the outset, he is like a very common man, just like you and me, a grihasta, has 10 children, and he has his court duties, and he has to go to his office every day and come back. And then there are problems that he faces in his office. And there are problems that he faces in his day-to-day life with finances, and then so many other things, which is so much relatable. And the fact that in spite of all these problems, he does his Vaishnav duties perfectly, and he has such sincerity, and he has such determination, and he continues his Krishna consciousness, and the fact that whatever tragedies that he faced in his life, how he turns them all into opportunities, and that's why we call him Acharya. So it's so much relatable, the way his whole life is. So it's very inspiring and motivating to hear about him, and and actually very interesting that how was he able to manage everything, wife and children and everything. He did it, and he was materially successful, like when we see the examples of other acharyas or other in the parampara, somewhere our mind will give us a excuse. Oh, he did it because he was a sannyasi, or he could did it because he was not successful materially, and then somehow Krishna. But if you see in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, he was successfully throughout till the fag end of his life, and he was the most wanted person by the British government, and somehow he just balanced both lives, material and spiritual, which is a popular question in ISKCON. How do you balance? How do you balance your material and spiritual life? And here is the personified grihastha who did it. He didn't abandon his children or anybody for that matter, and all through he did his duties perfectly and retired. So today we are going to read about him, hear about him. We'll start with his pranam mantra, and then we will dive into his Jivana Charitra. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidanandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So very simple pranam mantra. It just says Namo Bhakti Vinodaya. Actually, this name itself is very fascinating. Bhakti Vinodaya. Vinod is pleasure. So one who takes pleasure in performing Krishna conscious activities or performing devotional service. That's Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine. Actually, Lord is Satchidananda. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur had written a very beautiful book called the Satchidananda Prema Alankar. And because of that book, he got this name Satchidananda. So we call him Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So Satchidananda Namine, Gaura Shakti Swarupaya. He was actually the personification of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Shakti. How is that? As we go further in the class, we'll really understand how he was a personification, because he did things which were not humanly possible. So Gaura Shakti Swarupa, definitely he was empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's a transcendental energy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupanuga Varayate. Among all the followers of Rupanuga, Rupa Goswami, he is the Varaya, he is the first class, the best. Rupanuga Varayate. So to such Bhakti Vinod Thakur, we pay our humble obeisances. So before we dive into his appearance, what was actually happening during that time in India when Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared is very important to note. Then we will understand his value and the whole thing of, importance of his appearance at that very time and what he did for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So at that time, of course, a lot of these things are written in a book called Vaishnavas in Bengal, and also a very interesting book called The Colonial Empire, where, during those times when he appeared in the 1830s, the British were ruling India, and the whole situation was like in the Gaudiya preaching was completely grim, because the acharyas had left, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Sada Goswamis, and even after that generation, Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, Srinivasa Acharya, they all had left. And then what was happening is there was no active preaching. And as a result, those who had whatever they had carried from the parampara, they actually adulterated it, and they customized it, or they made it according to their convenience. And then they started engaging in sense gratification on the name of Krishna consciousness. And then they completely destroyed the whole culture. So, they started making their own mantras or started adding things to the Gaudiya culture. So as a result, a lot of upper sampradayas came up. So there was Jati Gosais. So they were like those who are the descendants, they just called them Goswamis, even though they didn't have any such quality. And then there was this Atibari Sampradaya. And then there was Sakhi Bekhi, where the men were also dressing like women. They were wearing gopi dress, and they said we all have to be in Sakhi Bhav. if we want to go back home, back to Godhead. And, this is, and then they started, their own, oh, this is my original Swarupa. So things were going, haywire, because they were all forming their own philosophies. There was no authorized book that they were following. There was the whole parampara system was destroyed. And they were, over a gradual period of time, 13 upper sampradayas came up. And actually, about this Upper Sampradaya, there is a very interesting book by His Holiness Suhotra Maharaj, where he writes about all these Upper Sampradaya. So there was this Atibari and Gauranga Nagari, where they started thinking about themselves as heroing and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as their hero. And they started propagating all sorts of nonsense ideas. So the whole situation was such that the educated class, the educated Indians, they started keeping themselves away from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They started thinking of it as some kind of a sect, which is not correct, and they didn't want to associate with them. So the Gaudiyas got a very bad name. Everybody was like, oh, because they were indulging in illicit sex, and they were not following properly rules and regulations. They were even smoking ganja, and they're just doing anything. So people started having such a wrong impression about the Gaudiya culture. Now, during this time, our Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur appears, and this is in sometime in September 2nd, 1838, on a Sunday. He appeared in a place called Ulagram, which is in Birnagar. And actually, I happened to visit that place just during Corona, actually, after the first wave, in between the first and second wave. Myself and my husband, we were in Mayapur, and then we went on all these Gauramandal places. And I been to this place called Ulanagar. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And as I speak about it, I can actually visualize it, because I've seen that place, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's birthplace, and that whatever is left out now, that it's a 2-story building, and there is a Goshala, and there are lots of small temples and samadhis and places of different Vaishnavacharyas in that parampara inside the corridor. And there is a huge garden, acres and acres of garden and mango groves, and it's been taken care by some Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. I think maybe 1 hour drive, before you reach Mayapur. So he was born in this place called Ulanagar, which is his maternal grandfather's place. So actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's a descendant from Narottam Das Thakur's family, and I'll tell you how it is. Even when I read about it, I was so happy, because Narottam Das Thakur is like my childhood hero. I'm very fascinated about him and his life, and I'm very attached to him. And when I came to know that he just comes from that, it made me jumped with joy. Raja Krishnananda, who was Narottam Das Thakur's father, he had a grandson called Govinda Sharan Datta. And Govinda Sharan Datta had a grandson called Ramchandra Datta. And from there, Krishna Chandra Datta. And from Krishna Chandra Datta to Madan Mohan Datta. And from Madan Mohan Datta is Ram Datta. And from Ram Datta, and it goes like that, Raja Vallabha Datta. And from Raja Vallabha is Ananda Chandra Datta, who is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's father. So they come from that lineage of Narottam Das Thakur. So Ananda Chandra Datta was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's father, a nice gentleman. If I want to put it in his words, what he says in his autobiography, he says, my father was the most handsome person in Bengal at that time. And he said, but I was not that good looking. So my mother used to pray to the Lord that though my third son is not Kedarnath, his name was Kedarnath. Kedarnath is, of course, a name of Lord Shiva. And mostly Bhaktivinoda Thakur's maternal mother's side, they were all Shaktas, followers of Durga Devi. So he was called Kedarnath. So his mother used to pray that, among all my sons, he's the most ugly looking, but still, I pray for him that he should live long at least, even if he's not good looking. Now, this is what he writes in his book. Others were good looking, but they didn't survive for long. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's elder brother, Abhay Kalim, he died in a very young age. And then His second brother, Kali Prasanna, even he died maybe at the age of 7, 8 or 10, even he expired. And then other two siblings that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had was Haridas and Gauridas, even they left their body, and he had only one sister, Hemalata, and even she left the body. So he was the only one who actually survived. And over the period of time, as his other siblings were dying, his mother got all the more very possessive about him, and she used to put so many talismans and all kinds of different kavachas on his neck and body to protect him. So, of course, all this is there in a book which is written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, called the Datta Vamsa Mala, where he writes the whole details about his family and who was born to whom and how everything happened. So, this place Ulla, where he was born, at that time his father was away, and his mother had gone to the grandfather's house where she delivered Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Was a very, very opulent place, and I can believe so when I saw the whole situation. There were some 1400 Brahmanas living there, and some Kaisthas and a lot of nice Vaishnavas living there, and it was a very, very affluent place. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's own writing, he writes that it was so opulent. There were hundreds of servants, and everything was so grand. In fact, they had the horse-driven carts, and they had goat-driven carts, and they had elephants. I mean, you can imagine somebody having a personal elephant. That means they were really rich people, to move around. And he says that my mother, being a daughter of a wealthy man, was not used to so much physical labor, and we were mostly taken care by the nurse. So that's how his life was. And at the very young age, in fact, the first poem composed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur was when he was 2 years old. And that is something very special, because 2-year-old children, I know I'm running a school here, and I know they hardly speak. I mean, they're just learning to speak, and he composed a poem. Now, he was with his maid servant, and he was looking at a crow, and looking at the crow, he said, "Oh dear crow, can you move aside? Looking like a squash colored crow, and my father is going to come, so just move aside," something like that. And they were amazed at how this child is able to compose a poem. So that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur was. So his early education was in his grandfather's veranda. There was some teacher coming there, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that even today I'm remembered of that cane which he used to hold in his hand. And all the boys from the village gathered there, and they had their schooling. And of course, later on, he went to a Bengali medium school, where he remembers, says that my teacher was not a good person. He was like a Yamaraj. And all the other senior students whom he used to engage to beat us up were like Yamadutas. And he says he was a cruel man. And he said that because of him, sometimes he even stole jackfruits from his house to just make his teacher happy, and sometimes even soak chickpeas to make his teacher happy, but he was never happy. And of course, finally, one time his brother Haridas wanted to actually kill the teacher. He got so angry, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to stop him. And then, of course, finally, the management came to know about that teacher, and then they chucked him out. So up to 6 years, he studied in Bengali medium school, and his main inspiration was not the school, actually, was his security guards. The security guards who were there at his maternal uncle's grandfather's house, they were giving him more knowledge, in fact, because they were talking about Ramayana and Mahabharata and telling him so many interesting stories that he usually preferred to stay and sit with them and hear from them rather than playing with his other siblings, because the other siblings were usually getting into trouble, trying to do something naughty, and he used to prefer to sit near this guard and hear from them some stories. And especially there was this one interesting guy who was a dacoit previously, and then later he became a gatekeeper for Bhaktivinoda Thakur's grandfather's house, and he had a lot of interesting stories to share. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very inspired from the beginning. He was like more into Shravanam, always talking, interacting, observing people and hearing from them. And then later, some big landlord or the king of Krishnanagar actually opened a college in Krishnanagar, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur started going there. Of course, in between, there was also a school opened by his grandmother, with the help of a Frenchman, an Indianized Frenchman, and there he studied for some time. So like that, his education was not like one school, 1 to 10th, so many different schools that he, went for a year and so and all. And from beginning, he was a very intelligent child, and he was doing so well. He was doing so well that the teachers used to come home and tell his father, that, oh, your son is amazing. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that when I was getting so much praise, actually my ego became inflated. I was like, full of proud, actually. So he said that, I'm sorry. So he said that I became so puffed up. And when my father saw that, I'm getting too much, pride, then he said, stop praising him, But he said that was a big disappointment for me. When my father said, stop praising, he said, then I completely became, what you say, disinterested in education. In fact, so much so I became disinterested that he started taking castor oil purposely because he wanted to become sick so that he doesn't have to go to school. So he said that my whole source of, inspiration to study was when people praise, but when there was no praise coming, then I was, disinterested completely. So then later what happens is his education is going on. There was a college in Krishnanagar where he was staying there with his nurse and brother. And then on weekends, they used to come back to Ula in palanquins and spend the weekends there, and then again go back to school, or, Krishnanagar's school or college, as to so to say. Later, what happened over a period of time, his maternal uncle expired. And then slowly, his other siblings died. And then once his maternal uncle expired, then his grandfather was cheated by some swindlers. They took off his money. Somebody had taken loan. They never gave it back. And as a result, slowly, the whole wealth of the family got deteriorated. And then over a period of time, it became such that they had so much debt in the society. Then nothing remained. The whole, whatever Aishwarya they had come down. And situation became so grim. And at that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's uncle from Calcutta, who was a very famous poet, he offered to sponsor Bhaktivinoda Thakur's education further. So he said, I'll take him with me to Calcutta, and I'll make sure that he completes his education because he's a talented boy. And anyway, he didn't have much opportunity in Ula anymore. So that's how he went to Calcutta. And there he continued his education. And then he started excelling again because he got exposure to so many other new teachers who were encouraging him very nicely. And he started writing. And writing he did from very young age. In fact, he wrote so much. In fact, I was thinking to make a list for today's class of what all he wrote. And I started and I thought, what am I getting into? There is no way, I can complete the list. Just his writing, if we explain in just one line, it is 47 pages. And I thought, forget about it, because more than hundreds of books that he has written, and from very young age. And even before he actually, manifested his Krishna conscious mood when he was just like a normal boy. Even during those times, he wrote books like Vikram Vetal, or some 30, 25 volumes. And then he wrote about Porus, the king who fought with Alexander the Great. Everything was a poem for him. He was expert in writing poems, prose, songs, at the drop of the hat. He can just compose something like that. Very, very intelligent. So, of course, he was a normal boy, playing cricket. Of course, he said he liked cricket, but once he got hurt in his eyebrows, and from that time he stopped playing it. So, and he was a voracious reader. Wherever he got the opportunities to read, and especially in Calcutta, he got a great opportunity. So he was making use of the public library and reading all the writers. In fact, he read Quran, he read Bible. In fact, he was a multilinguist. He knew Urdu, he knew Persian, he knew Bengali, he knew Sanskrit, he knew English, so many languages. So he read Quran, he read Bible. And he says in his biography that he was confused at one point of time that what's the actual way, back home, because there were so many philosophies which were floating. At the age of 11, his father expired, and that was a changing time for him. His father expired, and then he had to take care of his mother, and the finances were not that good. And in fact, at one time, he says that I used to love to go to the Brahmana's house so that I can get some, during the festival, so that I can get some good food to eat. That was the situation. So then, of course, he had a lot of faith on the name of Lord Ram, because in his young age, when once he had gone to eat some star apples under a tree. Somebody said it's ghost infested. And he was so afraid of ghosts. So he went and explained to one of his teachers that, I'm afraid of ghosts. And that teacher went on to explaining to him about different forms of ghost, and that made him all the more afraid. And then finally he took shelter of one of his friend's mother, who was expert in occult science, and she said, look, Kedarnath, just chant Lord Ram's name and no ghost can do anything to you. So from there on he started chanting Lord Ram's name, and he was so secured and sheltered with Lord Ram's name. He said, wherever I go, if there was any fear, I started chanting Lord Ram's name. At the age of 12 he got married to a 5-year-old girl from Ranaghat. In those days, there was this child marriage, and of course, they never stayed together. They stayed together only after they grew up. So that's how it was. And then, of course, if you read the biography, it's very interesting. It tell you everything about the wedding expenses. 2,000 rupees was the wedding expenses. He's given every little detail there. And then, of course, after he joined this Hindu school, Hindu charitable institution school in Calcutta, and then later finished his college in Calcutta, he got a job as a second grade teacher for class 2, and he was having a salary of 15 rupees per month. He went back to Ula. And the situation in Ula was very grim. In fact, his paternal grandfather had already predicted that it will happen. His maternal grandfather was in Ula. His paternal grandfather, they were also very rich. They had some land in Orissa. In fact, when his paternal grandfather got very old, he actually asked Bhaktivinoda Thakur to come and see him. He said, I may leave my body anytime, you come and see me. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually goes to Orissa to see his grandfather. But when he goes there, he sees his grandfather is completely healthy. He's happily eating kachori with lots of chilies and milk with dates. And he thought that, he asked me to come, that he's going to leave the body, but it looks perfectly healthy. But he says, no, hold on, wait, I'm going to leave my body in 3 days. He was amazed, he could just tell when he's going to leave his body. And he just made 2 predictions. He told Bhaktivinoda Thakur that, everything in Ula is going to be destroyed soon. And when you come to the age of 27, then you will be stable in your, your material job, life, or whatever. You will be stable in your with your finances. And that's what happened. When he went to Ula to look on his mother, he saw everything in Ula was changed. When he came from Kolkata, he saw that there was no more opulence in Ula. Everything was destroyed. There was some kind of an epidemic, and many people died. And when he reached his house, he saw only his grandmother and mother, and both are sick. And in fact, there was one interesting thing that I find in this whole biography of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If you read in details, every other day, there is some disease that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was suffering from. Either he got a boil on his thigh, or sometimes his tongue got cut with the teeth, or he got allergy all over the body, or he had fever, or he had high tonsillitis. No, and I didn't knew this, this detail about it. And when I read that, I was like, I was expecting, because we read this Bhaktivinoda Thakur's timetable and how he just sleeps few hours in days and he writes so many books. We assume he must be having a healthy body, and probably that's one excuse I try to give myself. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a healthy body. Maybe I'm not that physically strong, is what I always try to justify when I'm not able to do justice to a particular seva. And when I read the book, in detail, and I was like, oh my God, he had so many health problems, but he never gave up his Vaishnav duties. And I thought that was very inspiring. Every other day there is something, it's like it becomes repetitive when you're reading that biography. Always he has some problem. Either he's having a high fever or he's having something. He never had like, okay, he was perfectly all right. Usually we expect like, oh, Krishna's pure devotee, Krishna takes care. What problem? They will have no issues, but he had so many issues. And that's very, very, very inspiring, So then Ula was completely destroyed, and there was just nothing there. So he just took his mother and grandmother back to Calcutta and started taking care of them. Meanwhile, his wife, she said, even I want to, she's grown up now. She said, I want to come and stay with you. She was insisting. And then finally he brought his wife also. And over a period of time, his grandmother expired. And then his mother and wife were staying with them. And he kept changing jobs. Now, this is something which we can relate, job problems, because he was in he was working as an accountant for some time in a sugar factory, or and there things didn't work out because he was so honest. I think he just gave an extra sack of sugar to somebody who had paid more money or something like that. Then this man got really upset that if you're so honest, then you don't work here, go and teach. You're a Brahmana, you're not suitable for this job. So he was like, chucked out from that job. So like that, he kept changing. First he became a second grade teacher, then he became a sixth grade teacher, and then he kept going. But the beauty is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had such beautiful svabhava, just like that in the Shada Goswami Astakam, it says, right, Dhira, Dhira, Janapriya. The devotees of the Lord, they have such swabhava. Everybody likes them, whether there are devotees like devotees, but even materialistic karmi ruffians also fall in love with devotees because of their beautiful swabhava. And that was the case in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life also. Everybody used to like him so much, anybody who comes in touch with him, and they always wanted to help him out. So he had some good friends in the British government, and they were guiding him nicely. And they said, no, how long you just, be a grade school grade teacher? Why not you write law exam? And then you can do something better. So according to their guidance and all, he studied law. And then, of course, slowly, by their help and recommendation, he got some better job. He worked as a clerk for some time, and then he worked as a tax collector for some time. And that's how, and between again, he got very sick. So when he got very sick, then he took 3 months leave, and then he went to Vrindavan, Kasi, Prayag, and whole yatra. And in his autobiography, he says, my first trip to Vrindavan was not that great because I was not yet a devotee. Of course, this is all, we know he's a Nitya Parshad, but, I'm just saying what he says. So I was not a devotee. I was looking at things with, full of gnana, trying to understand things, but not with bhakti. That's how I had my Vrindavan trip, he says. Then, of course, after writing law and all, and then he became the deputy magistrate of Dinajpur. There, things changed. Of course, if you read in details, everything was a stepping stone. Wherever he was posted, something or the other he gained from wherever he got his different postings. But this particular space was very special, Dinajpur, because there were lots of Vaishnavas there. And he got the association of Vaishnavas. And then somebody gave him Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya. Of course, he was looking for Chaitanya Charitamrita, which he got after 12 years by one of his friend who sent him. So he started reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. He found it interesting. But, something funny he mentions there. He said, I thought Chaitanya is a Pandit. It's a great Pandit. I like him. But such a great Pandit like Chaitanya, why is he asking to worship Krishna, whose character is not that great? So that's what he said. That was his question at that time, that why is he asking to worship Krishna, who's like, okay, how come he believes that Krishna is God? And then, of course, he did more studying. And then later, of course, and then he was writing and studying. And during that time, he says in 1868, he said that slowly, as I was reading more and I was reading more, I started developing understanding and I started developing attachment to reading books connected to Lord Krishna. And then slowly I got a clear picture. And he said that feeling was very special, where I wanted to do nothing but just read about Krishna, and read about Krishna. And then, of course, one by one, children started being born. And the first son was born in Champaran. But unfortunately, when the first child was 10 months old, his wife expired. And then he got married again. And the second marriage was with Lalita Devi, who later came to be known as Bhagavati Devi, as we know her today. And the rest of the children, especially our Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was born of the second wife. So then he was then shifted to Chapra and then so many other places. And what is of importance and significance to us is his shifting to Puri. When he shifted to Puri as a magistrate, that also was a very life-changing time for him, because he got a lot of Vaishnava association and he was getting daily Jagannath darshan, and also because of his sincerity and his intelligence and his management ability. And they also made him in charge to take care of the Jagannath temple. So he was taking care of the day-to-day affairs at the Jagannath temple. And at that time, so many interesting things happened. In fact, one thing which I can mention is about, there was this person called Bishakishen. Bishakishen, he was claiming himself to be Mahavishnu. And he did had some yogic siddhis. So he could just, take out fire from wood, and he could just, fly, or not exactly fly. It's like he can sit in elevated position, or he can just float in the air. He could cure diseases which were like, incurable diseases. He was just showing so much, power. So everybody actually believed that he was Mahavishnu, incarnation of Mahavishnu. But he took advantage of it, and he was having illicit relations with the other people's wife, and he was doing lots of nuisance. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he was in Puri, he went to meet that man, and he said, look, I know what you are doing. I can understand what all these powers that you are showing is simply yogic siddhis, but you are not God, and you should accept it. So he said, there was a big argument. So he decided to arrest him, because he was misguiding the general public. But even when he brought the police force to arrest him, there were fire sparks coming out from that yogi's body, so they were not even able to touch him. Finally, he took 100 policemen and lots of bullock carts, many bullock carts, and then he himself tied him with the rope and arrested him, and then presented him in the court. And the whole court thing, the trial went on for maybe like 17 days continuously, and there were thousands of followers that this yogi had, who were doing a dharna, staging a protest in front of the court. Please release our yogi, he's God, how can you treat him like that? And he was actually showing so many yogic powers even inside the jail. He never ate, never drank anything, and he was still effulgent. A lot of light coming out from him, and all healthy and happy without eating anything. And in between the trials, he was threatening Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said, don't do this, you're going to pay for this. And lo and behold, it happened. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur went back home one day, his wife said that his daughter suddenly became sick. His daughter's name was Kadambini. He said, suddenly she's sick. So they don't know what to do. They were trying to get doctors. Nobody was able to cure the child. So everybody was saying that, look, that yogi is doing something to your child. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur never moved. He continued it. And then at the last day, the 17th day, when he has to pronounce judgment, at that time the yogi had warned him, and that's what happened. Bhaktivinoda Thakur got a cardiac arrest. He was in sincere pain, severe pain. But still, with that pain, he went to the court and he pronounced his judgment that this yogi is a humbug, and that he'll be in prison for 6 months. So still the yogi was not deterred. He said, look, what's going to happen to him. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is suffering cardiac arrest, and the whole situation is like this. And then when they're taking him, the yogi, to put him back in the prison again, there was this one English officer who had read a lot about Indian culture and about tantric vidya and all. What he did is he jumped on the yogi from behind and cut his hair, because he had read somewhere that these yogis have a lot of power in their hair. And that was true. The moment the hair was cut, the yogi collapsed. Immediately collapsed. He had no more strength. And immediately Bhaktivinoda Thakur became fine. His daughter became fine. Everybody was okay. And then after his imprisonment, after 3 months or something, he took poison and died inside the prison. So like that, so many things happened in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, where he established the real Vaishnava culture. And, after this Mahavishnu, there were so many others who appeared also. Somebody said, I'm a Brahma, and somebody said, I'm Balaram, and somebody said, I'm Shiva. And he used to fight them all out, So, sorry. So then he, of course, he was studying Sridhar Maharaj. He was studying Bhagavatam with Sridhar Maharaj's commentary. He was doing lots of studying at that time when he was in Puri. He used to sit in Jagannath Vallabh gardens and do lots of studying of different scriptures. He got a book called Bhaktamal. And not only he was studying scriptures, he was also talking about it. And he was talking such eloquently that people used to gather there in Jagannath Vallabh gardens to hear him. And there was this one man called Raghunath Das Babaji. He stopped people from going there. He said, this man, Kedarnath or whatever, he doesn't even put tilak. He doesn't even have kanti. So don't go and listen to him. Speaking something maybe because he's very intelligent or, maybe educated, but you should not go to him. So because he was criticizing Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Lord Jagannath came in the dream of that Babaji and said, don't say that, he's a pure devotee. And when Jagannath ji came in the dream, then Raghunath Das Babaji, he went to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and he said, please excuse me, I've been criticizing you, but my genuine doubt is, why don't you wear a kanti? You are Krishna's devotee, why don't you put tilak? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, well, I don't have a guru. I wanted to take it from some guru. I'm looking for some guru. And then, of course, in Puri, he met a lot of interesting people. For example, there was this one person called Swarup Das Babaji Maharaj in Puri, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to regularly go to him. He was blind, but he was a pure devotee. So he heard from him a lot, but he was looking for a guru. And especially one thing in Puri, very interesting, was that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, inside the Puri temple, he had this place called Bhakti Mandap. Just like there is Mukti Mandap, where these Puri pujaris used to have their own council. Bhaktivinoda Thakur started a Bhakti Mandap, where he used to give classes on Krishna Tattva. And that's very interesting, because you see, temple means people should come and hear about Krishna. They should see Krishna. They should take prasad. They should hear about Krishna. They should associate with Krishna. So devotees associate with Krishna's devotees. So darshan was happening, prasad was happening, but then there was no Krishna shiksha. There was nobody talking about Krishna. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to establish that. So he started this classes at Bhakti Mandap, where people come and hear about Krishna. So, and there is where our dear Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born. He appeared there in Puri, and this was because of the prayer of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was praying to the Lord, that the way this whole thing is, so many apasampradayas, and I'm alone. I need help, to preach Krishna consciousness. Please send me somebody who will help to carry my mission further. So that's how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared. And that's why his biography is called the Ray of Vishnu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, carried forward, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur carried forward Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mission. And as this whole Krishna conscious structure and culture and this whole mission is actually, the architect of this mission is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the engineer of this whole mission is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada is the builder, actually building it, and then we are all the laborers who are just trying to assist or help Srila Prabhupada. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born there, and of course there are so many other pastimes that happened, very special pastimes that happened related to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Puri. So, of course, we'll not go into that today. Now, as he appeared and all, and I think for 5 years or something, Bhaktivinoda Thakur stayed in Jagannath Puri, and he had a tussle with the king of Puri, because the king of Puri had misappropriated around 80,000 rupees. Now, 80,000 rupees is a big money, temple money at that time. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur punished him. Punished in the sense, he said, you have to offer 52 times boga every day to the Lord. This is your punishment because of that misappropriation that you did. So when he had to offer 52 times boga, all his treasury was getting depleted. So he got really upset with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he conspired against him. So what he did is, he couldn't go and kill him outrightly. So inside his Antar Bhavan, inside his palace, they organized a Tantric Yagya to kill Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And that happened for 30 days. And at the end of the 30th day, when the clarified butter was supposed to be offered, the final butter, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was supposed to be dying, at that moment when the butter was offered, the king's son, the only son, expired. He left the body, and nothing happened to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was safe. So of course, like that, there was so many attempts. There is one place where somebody else also was creating problem, and actually there was this ghost, Brahma Rakshasa, in a particular tree, and this Brahma Rakshasa was influencing the magistrate of that locality in giving judgments which were in favor of the bandits, the dacoits who were living in that area. So that was causing a lot of nuisance, and the British government asked Bhaktivinoda Thakur to go there. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur sat 1 month under the tree reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and at the end of the month, the tree fall, and the Brahma Rakshasa left that place. So, I mean, if we go on, there are so many such incidents that happens in his life. And even when he goes to Vrindavan, there is this particular dacoits group which has been giving so much trouble to the pilgrims who come to Vrindavan or do Govardhan Parikrama, and how Bhaktivinoda Thakur very systematically gets rid of them. So like that, there are many such events. And of course, during this second time when he goes to Vrindavan, he meets his guru Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. before that also he takes initiation from Vipin Vihari Goswami. He was a Jati Goswami. He was a descendant of Vamsi Vadananda Thakur, who was the one who was given responsibility by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take care of his mother and wife when he takes sannyas. So he came from that lineage. He was a descendant from there. But the fact that, later Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur never mentioned him in our parampara, we understand that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was more inspired, influenced, and by Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Association. So he took Diksha from Vipin Vihari Goswami, but he took Siksha from Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and he was more encouraged and inspired by his association. So, and then, of course, when he went to Vrindavan also, he got fever again, and he was down with fever, and he was praying, to the Lord that please postpone my fever. I mean, okay, I have my karmas due. So, but can you just postpone the fever so that after finishing my Vrindavan trip, and it actually happened. Of course, the great devotees can do that. It was postponed. The fever was postponed. And after some time, when he finishes Vrindavan Yatra, he got the fever again. And then during that time, now since he had become a district magistrate, he was drawing a good salary. He was financially stable. Things were, on the finance side, it was okay. He was successful. And he started constructing a house in Calcutta, which is called the Bhakti Bhavan. Even today, you can see that place. It's not under ISKCON or something. His relatives are staying there, Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta. It's a nice place. In fact, when he started construction of the Bhakti Bhavan, when they were digging, they found a Kurmadev deity, which he gave it to his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Even today, you can see that Kurmadev deity. And there is also this Govardhan Shila, which was given by Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj to Bhaktivinoda Thakur for worshipping. So you can see that deity still today. Not everybody is allowed, but if you can request, then sometimes they show you that bed is there. That place is there in Bhakti Bhavan. So he wanted to have this Bhakti Bhavan, his house in Calcutta. Those days he paid 6,000 rupees to make that house. He wanted to have it as a preaching center. He wanted to preach from there. So he wrote a lot of books from there. And in fact, he also constructed a room for his guru, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, to come and stay with him in Bhakti Bhavan sometimes. And so now the whole preaching was going in a very fiery way. He was writing so many books. In fact, in 1 year, he wrote more than 20 books. As a result, he got a problem in the eye, problem in the head. He had headache because of so much researching, writing, reading commentaries of different acharyas and giving his own commentaries and publishing so many books. In fact, in Bhakti Bhavan, he started a printing press called the Chaitanya Yantra. And there was continuously, and then he started the magazine Sajjan Toshni, and so many things were happening at a time. And he was praying to Jiva Goswami, because Jiva Goswami has written maybe more than 4 lakh verses. Please bless me and please help me get rid of this headache. And then somebody asked him to put some hot ghee, desi ghee, and then he got rid of his headache. So like that, he was writing so many books, and then he was in fact, during that phase of his life, he got introduced to so many famous people, novelists and famous publishers and famous authors, and they were impressed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books, and that's how he was coming in contact with them. And especially at that time, this one person to be mentioned is Bankim Chandra, who was a very, very famous novelist, and he wrote a book called Krishna Charitra. And of course, that was a mix of some impersonalist thoughts and all, but he was favorable to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he said, if there is anything I need to edit in this, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he actually edited the whole book. He said, no, it should be like this, it should be like that. And finally, the book was printed with all the inputs taken from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which was widely criticized by everybody. They were thinking that this Bankim Chandra was a good, sane man, and why is he writing all that Krishna is God and all, what happened to him? But he was influenced by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's teachings. And later on, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote his own commentary on Bhagavad Gita, along with the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the introduction to that Bhagavad Gita was written by Bankim Chandra, who was very famous. So the book became very popular because that author was very popular. Of course, he started the Vishwa Vaishnava Sabha in Calcutta, and he was regularly lecturing. And then he was also looking for this special book called Chaitanya Upanishad, which is a part of Atharva Veda. He was searching because he wanted to prove, about that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there was so many things which he could get from that Chaitanya Upanishad. And finally, he got that book also. And because of his writing so many books, Sripad Acharya Kul and the other devotees, the Sangha, they gave him the title of Bhakti Vedanta or Bhakti Vinod, Bhakti Vedanta. He was I'm sorry, like he was writing so many things for Krishna, and the way he was preaching, they gave him that title of Bhakti Vinod. So he already had the title of Sachidananda, and now he was Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So till this time he was Kedarnath Datta, and now he was called Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And of course, this name Seventh Goswami was also given to him by a journalist, or I could say founder of the Amrit Bazar Patrika, which was like the famous, very famous journal at that time. And the Shishir Ghosh, who was the founder of that Amrit Bazar Patrika, he said that I have not seen the 6 Goswamis, but you are certainly the 7th Goswami, because he was so impressed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life and purity. And he said, you are certainly the 7th Goswami. So there were many things that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. One thing very special, which should be mentioned, otherwise this class is not complete, is his discovery of or rediscovery of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthplace, which is very special, because after he was transferred to Midnapur and so many different places. At one point, he decided to actually retire, but then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in his dream and said, "Not now," because he wanted to retire with his friend, and he thought, I'll just preach around. I don't want to continue with my job. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in his dream and he said, you have some work to be done in Navadvip. So he stayed, continued in his job. And then he was in Sri Rampur at that time. So he wanted to go to Krishna Nagar. So he had this mutual transfer with his colleague in Krishna Nagar. And he got transferred to Krishna Nagar as a magistrate. And as soon as he landed there in Krishna Nagar, he was sick again for 45 days. So sick, couldn't move. He simply was surviving on milk. Finally, Krishna Nagar is one place, and then there is Navadvip. So what he was doing is from Monday to Friday, he's in Krishna Nagar, and on weekends, he was going to Navadvip because he wanted to search for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthplace. And at that time, he was staying in this Rani Dharamshala. So he was reading lots of manuscripts. He was trying to see old maps because Ganga had changed its course. So he was doing a lot of research. And at that time, one night at 10 o'clock, when he was sitting on the balcony with his son, Kamal Prasad, and one of the clerk, he saw a light there, on the other side of Ganga. And next day he went there. And of course, at that moment, he asked his son, can you see the light? He said, yes. He asked the clerk, can you see something? He said, no, I don't see anything. And next day he went to that place and he asked the locals, what is this place? They said, it's a hopeless place. Nothing grows except Tulsi. Bhaktivinoda Thakur thought, oh, that means this is the place because nothing grows except Tulsi here. And then he took some more old maps and then, and then he finally tried to find out if this is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. And then after all that research he made from Bhakti Ratnakar, and of course, you see, Lochan Das Thakur's Chaitanya Mangal also mentions how when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he crossed the Ganges, he swam, and then he went to Navadvip, and then from there he went to Katra. So this was all matching, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur took the map and the old manuscripts and he put all the books together, he thought, yes, this is the place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the neem tree. This is the place. But he wanted to confirm it. This was a technical, with all that research paper. But he wanted a spiritual, confirmation from an acharya. So then he requested Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj to come there. And Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was at that time was maybe 120 years old. So Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was carried by his servant Bihari in a basket, on the head. So he brought Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj there, and he was so weak at that time, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, that even if he had to open his eyes, 2 people were required, to lift the eyelids. Otherwise, he can't open it. That was his situation. But when he was brought to that place, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's place, Yogapit, he jumped out from his basket and he started jumping, in the air. He said, "This is Nimai's place. Oh, this is Nimai's place. Hey, to Nimai's place. This is Nimai's birthplace." Then, Bhaktivinoda Thakur became happy. Now it was confirmed by Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj that this is the place. So he wanted to establish a temple there, but now he had his duties as a magistrate. So he applied for, he said, "I want to resign." But they did not allow his resignation. In fact, they said, if you have any inconvenience, we can pick you up right from your doorstep. So in fact, they actually laid a railway track up to his house. So he can come out from his house, sit in the train and go to the office and again come back. I mean, just put a railway track just for him because he was so sharp. He was so sharp. What his colleagues took 1.5 hour, he could do it in 5 minutes. And on a daily basis, he was sorting out maybe like 20 to 30 court cases, just like that. It was, and he had a system. He told, people that don't come and, do all the arguments in front of me. Whatever you want to say, just write it and give it to me. I'll read it. If I have some question, I'll ask. So he used to get all those information and then actually call the party and ask just 2 questions. That's it. And 2 to 3 questions, they're done. Because, he'll catch them just like that and give the judgment. And they were so happy. The British government was so happy. They didn't want him to retire. But of course, because they were not allowing him to retire, then he requested, "Okay, give me 2 years leave. I want sick leave. I need to take rest." So they said, okay. So in that 2 years that they gave him a leave, he worked like anything. Every single day he was on a preaching mission. And just in that much time, I think some 500 Namahattas he opened, going from village to village and village to village and village to village, he was preaching. So all over Bengal, in fact, I'm just saying 500 Namahattas, which is like official, but there may be so many other. And he's written a essay called the Godrum Kalpataru, where he, explains in details how he did that preaching. And every detail is like, who is supposed to do what, how to expand, all the strategies are given there. So he did a lot of expansion. So we see that, the whole Bengal preaching was done by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Of course, his son later on expanded all over India and established 64 Gaudiya Maths, and his son's disciple, Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, spread the whole thing around the world. So it's all started with Bengal, and this whole preaching strategy, how to do, what to do with this. Of course, Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj has, translated that book in English, and he's also added, how the Bhakti Viksha preaching, self-preaching and all from that book. So like that, in fact, there's another innovative thing that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did is the Vaishnava Panjika, starting of the almanac, and where he stressed, on celebrating the Gaur Purnima festival that we now do very grandly, but introduced that. So, yeah, there are so many things to say, but I think it's already 7 o'clock. And one thing very special is how he built that temple, which we see now, where we Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vishnu Priya deities are worshipped. He actually went door to door, and after his retirement, finally when he did retire, he went door to door, and he used to tell everybody, not much, even if you give 1 rupee, just 1 rupee donation, it's enough. And it was in the newspapers that such a big retired magistrate is begging from door to door. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had such contacts. If he wanted, he could have constructed the temple, by just 1 donor. But he wanted everybody should be part of this, this beautiful temple, which was constructed in Yogapit. So he went door to door begging money. And then finally, on the Gaur Purnima day in 1895, this beautiful temple, which we see today, was manifested. And the program was so grand that people compared it with the Kheturi festival of Narottam Das Thakur, which happened 450 years ago. Such grand was the whole inauguration of that temple. And in 1896, that's the birth year of our dear Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually sent his books around the world to different places, and especially this particular book called Life and Precepts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sent to McGill University in Montreal. So So many English authors were also reviewing his books and they were praising him. So like that, he wrote books in different languages, in English and Bengali and Sanskrit, and he was sending them all around the world. So of course, coming to his spiritual form, he himself revealed it in his book Kalyana Kalpataru in the song form. He said that I'm Kamala Manjari and my age is 12 and a half years in Goloka Vrindavan, and I serve Ananga Manjari, and I serve Lalita Devi. And of course, even if you see his the name of his house also in Navadvip, it is called Swananda Sukhada Kunj, which is the name of the gurus of Lalita Devi. And the fact that he was Lalita Devi's assistant is again proved by how Swarup Damodar actually came in a vision to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and guided him time and again. So we know Swarup Damodar is Lalita Sakhi. So it's like proved that, he was an assistant of Lalita Devi in Goloka Vrindavan. Especially this particular book called Bhagavat Marichi Mala, he wrote with the guidance of Sarup Damodar Goswami. So Sarup Damodar. So like that, he had many visions, and time and again he was guided by the Parampara, by the Lord. He took his Babaji Vesha from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, but at the same time, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj considered Bhaktivinoda Thakur as his guru. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he took a lot of inspiration from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he had to take Vesa from somewhere, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he took it from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He was reluctant to give, and that's again a big story of how he actually got it. And finally, he started accepting disciples. And especially one disciple should be mentioned, Krishnadas Babaji, who served him till the fag end, a very wonderful way. And he was so attached to Bhaktivinoda Thakur that when Bhaktivinoda Thakur left the body, even he left his body within a year. So like that, even this, he had such wonderful qualities. In fact, those British, especially there's one person to be mentioned called Sir William Duke, who was the chief secretary of Bengal at the fag end of his life. He called for Bhaktivinoda Thakur and asked him forgiveness. He said, outwardly, I was behaving like your friend, but inwardly, actually, I was envious of you. I was always trying to make some trouble for you and make sure that you don't get promoted, because I was worried about you, that if such intelligent Indian men like you, go up in the order, maybe you will drive the Britishers out, but somehow I could never make a problem for you. But now, since that the fag end of my life, we have this culture in our religion that we ask forgiveness from somebody, whom we have hurt. So I want to ask forgiveness from you. I gave a lot of trouble to you. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was shocked, because he always thought that he was a friend. He never knew that behind his back, he was actually trying to trouble him. So Sir William Duke says, but I could never, make any problem for you. You were always protected by your Lord. So this is what happened. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has such amazing qualities. In fact, in Jaiva Dharma's introduction, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had all the 26 qualities that are mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita about a Vaishnava and a devotee. He was charitable, he was soft-hearted, he was grave, he was determined, he was sincere, he was honest to the core. Such amazing qualities he had, such wonderful character that he had. At the end, I would just like to share with you the timetable of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is so inspiring. How he was doing that, I don't know. 7:30 in the evening, he used to sleep in the evening and then get up again at 10 o'clock. And then from 10 to morning 4 o'clock, he used to write books. And then again from 4 to 4:30, take a little rest and then wash his hand and feet and mouth, and then again start chanting. After completing his rounds and all, and then from 7 o'clock onwards, he used to do his correspondence. And then again from 9 to 9:30, he used to read sometimes a little bit more of, books, some philosophical books, or meet some visitors, and then take some breakfast. And breakfast, he used to take some milk and some chapatis and fruits. And by sharp 10 o'clock, wear the uniform, go to a court. again come back from court at 1 o'clock, take his lunch, then again 2 o'clock go to the court, again come back in the evening at 5 o'clock, and then from 5 o'clock onwards again he used to start doing his evening bath, meal, little bit, and whatever other things has to be done, and then take rest by 7:30. That was his daily routine. So he's written like hundreds and hundreds of books and inspired so many people. On his on this auspicious appearance day of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we can pray to him. He's our great grandfather, and definitely if we sincerely pray to him, he can remove all the obstacles that come in our devotional life, in our bhakti life, and he can bless us, he can give us the strength and energy to continue our Krishna conscious quest. And only he can do it. He's what do you say, Gaura Shakti Swarupaya. So that Shakti he can in a little quantity pass on to all of us, and so that we can continue our journey back home, back to Godhead. Thank you so much, dear devotees, and sorry for going a little over time. I'll end it here. Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There was one thing that I should mention, because I'm just ending his class. I didn't tell about his disappearance. He left his body in Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta. That was in 1914. And that was the disappearance day of Gadadhar Pandit. Outwardly, he said he had paralysis, but devotees understand that he just wanted to shut himself away from the whole world. So, I mean, he just, he was in the Bhakti Bhavan and just doing his own bhajan. He was not meeting many people. And that's how he left his body. Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, that was such a beautiful class. Mataji, will you take questions?
Okay, one or two.
Thank you, Mataji. Devotees, please raise your hands and you may unmute and ask. Satyarupa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. As usual, we enjoyed your class with so many details. We usually watch in YouTube, but now we got to pleasure to watch you in Zoom, one-to-one. So, Mataji, my question is, when we go back home, back to Godhead, so how is our Swarupa? Is like that we can see Bhaktivinoda Thakur as it is, or how he is going to be?
Somebody asked that to Prabhupada, that, Srila Prabhupada, when we go to Goloka Vrindavan, how will we find you? Where you will be? What will be your Swarupa? And Prabhupada said, don't worry, I'll find you. Just somehow try to come back. I'll find you there wherever you are. So yeah, so we don't know what's our Swarupa, but we shouldn't worry. The Guru Parampara, they'll find us and they'll engage us in service of Radharani and Krishna.
Okay, so we'll have body what we have now, like that body, or how we will be in?
We'll have transcendental body. We'll have transcendental body. This body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and mind, ego, and intelligence. But that body is a transcendental body.
Agree with that. But with that transcendental body, have eyes, nose, or not necessary to have that?
No, we'll definitely have eyes, nose, hands, and with which we'll serve Radha and Krishna.
Okay. But need not be this form, maybe another form.
No, very beautiful form. This is what we have now, is a very ugly form, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji. Anyone else? Please unmute yourself. If there are no other questions, I would request Ram Prabhu to give a thank you note.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, Nitaisevini Mataji. We have seen your videos, more, that's how we are familiar, but now we're seeing in the live, and it's like, getting a darshan of you. like you said, associating of, devotee is, more pleasure. So thank you very much, Mataji, for accepting and giving us a wonderful, wonderful class. I was taking a notes of, what to recollect, and then it is so much like here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, hundreds of books, like, in 1 hour, you shared that the information, so much information is nectar of it is, like I couldn't keep up, like, the notes that I had, and, so like always, we watch your videos, and then you showed us you shared us very wonderful information about in Bhakti. In one word, actually, it reminded me that, a real hero nowadays, talking about, heroes, but he is a real hero, like, how he lived the material life, and then also as a spiritual balance state, how he worked day and night, and how he resolved, even pleased with, the British rulers, the amount of, you shared us, a lot of information and so much inspiration. And then, I mean, even in the weekday when we were like, people with us, so many people now, got excited when we hear that, you're giving class, thank you very much. And then on behalf of Hare Krishna Temple and our Satsasara Prabhu and Jesubhadra Mataji, and giving this opportunity and sharing with us, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ram Prabhu, for the beautiful thank you note. Thank you, Nitaisevini Mataji. That was absolutely fantastic class and so enlightening. We learned so much about Bhaktivinoda Thakur today. And as Prabhu said, we always see you on YouTube, but today live on Zoom, it was really a very, very beautiful and memorable event program for us. Thank you very much, Mataji, for giving us your association. Please come often and give us your association and classes, Mataji. We'd be grateful to you.
Thank you.
Mataji.
I'm equally delighted to be in all of your company. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you
Hare
very much,
Krishna,
Mataji.
Mataji. Thank you.
With that, devotees, thank you all for joining today. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Appearance Day Mahotsav ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, God Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much for joining. Hare Krishna.